The seven great truths cultivators and the yin-yang devils initially managed to hold their ground against the mighty Mulan's sacred bird, but their resistance couldn't last. The longer they fought, the more their strength faded beneath the creature's overwhelming power. The two yin-yang devils endured best, countering the azure flames with waves of yin wind and undead qi. The seven great truths. Cultivators, however, were reaching their limits. Their magic power was nearly spent, their protective lights flickering weakly. Among them, two elders stood out, one red-faced with fading spiritual light, and another pale-faced with white qi trembling around his nose and mouth. Both were burning their vitality, using forbidden techniques just to stay alive. Han Li watched the grim scene with a deep frown. His gaze shifted from the dead cultivators, nearby to the Mulan spell warrior, standing guard near the ancient lanterns. After a brief pause, he spoke in a voice so faint that no one else could hear. "Watch over the weeping soul beast. Don't let anything happen to it. If danger arises, withdraw it immediately. I'm going to destroy those ancient lanterns." He tossed the weeping soul pearl behind him, and in a flash of white light, it vanished. "Yes, Master. Please be careful. That peacock's power is terrifying," Silvermoon's voice whispered anxiously from behind. Han Li gave a calm nod. Seeing that no one nearby noticed him, he blurred and disappeared. Using his nameless qi restraining technique, he completely erased his presence. Though his concealment skill wasn't as refined as Silvermoon's, he had mastered this technique to its peak. It allowed him not only to suppress his spiritual aura, but also to hide even from powerful beings like the Mulan, sacred bird itself. Far in the distance, spell warrior Li watched the battle unfold with growing unease. Her allies were locked in fierce combat with the shriveled old man. And though she remained to guard the lanterns, worry crept across her face. Turning toward the enormous bird, she spoke a few urgent words in an ancient tongue. The azure flame bird hesitated briefly, then turned its proud head toward the old man's battle. With a disdainful cry, it spread its wings and unleashed several blazing spheres of blue fire. The attacks exploded among the seven great truths cultivators, forcing them back in disarray. Then, with a thunderous screech, the bird rose into the air and began to circle. In a blur of motion, hundreds of glowing azure feathers scattered from its body. Each feather transformed into a blazing firebird, its wings shimmering with deadly light. These phantom birds shrieked as they streaked across the sky toward the cultivators. Formation. Spell warrior. Li allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. With the sacred bird's help, victory was all but assured. But her confidence faltered as a sudden series of violent explosions echoed from the battlefield's center. Confused, she turned to see what had happened, unaware that Han Li, hidden and approaching stealthily, was just as startled by the sound. At the heart of the battlefield, a fierce contest was underway. The myriad soul formation, a thick mist conjured by dozens of ghost spirit sect disciples, floated motionless in midair. Facing it stood an army of spiritual beasts summoned by several Mulan sages, and the colossal stone giant that towered over all. Under the sage's command, the giant had blocked the ghost mist once it had crushed the cultivators, who attacked it. Now its massive hand descended like a mountain, scattering boulders as it slammed toward the ghost mist. The ghost spirit sect disciples, realizing they couldn't withstand the blow, hastily moved their formation aside, the black mist streaking 100 meters away before stopping again. Everyone watching sensed the battle's climax approaching. The ghost spirit sect elder in charge of the formation gritted his teeth and made a desperate choice to unleash the formation's ultimate killing technique. As a chilling chant echoed from within the mist, ghostly wails filled the air. A column of crimson light burst upward, dyeing the black mist red as if soaked in blood. The Mulan sages on the stone giant's shoulders looked on in alarm. Then, without warning, the cultivators inside the mist scattered in panic, fleeing in streaks of multicolored light. The sages were confused until the abandoned crimson mist began to writhe violently. From its depths, dozens of massive, blood-colored tentacles emerged, thrashing in every direction. The ghost spirit sect elder, watching from afar, smiled grimly. It worked. With all the blood essence it's absorbed, it should succeed. As the mist shrank to half its size, The two Mulan sages commanded the stone giant to crush it. But before the attack could land, a wave of bone-chilling yellow wind erupted from the ground, freezing the air itself. The stone giant hesitated under the sudden assault. Then, with a thunderous roar, the yellow wind was ripped apart, and from the crimson mist emerged a monstrous figure. A 30-meter-tall, blood-vial ghost. It had a demonic head with two sharp horns and fangs like blades. A black ponytail hung behind it, and its arms gleamed with translucent scales, its fingers shaped like daggers. Though far smaller than the stone giant, the ghost showed no fear. It roared and shot forward, claws flashing. With one strike, it tore a massive chunk of stone from the giant's leg. The sages retaliated immediately, commanding the giant to smash down with both fists. The blow sent the ghost flying, half its head shattered, but in a blink of crimson light, its injuries healed and it lunged again. Realizing brute strength wouldn't suffice, the Mulan sages summoned their spiritual beasts and treasures to assist. The ghost spirit sect disciples who had fled now turned back, joining the fray in desperation. Explosions erupted across the battlefield as crimson and yellow lights clashed in a storm of destruction. Watching from afar, spell warrior Lo frowned deeply. The heavenly south cultivators' resilience surprised her. How could they hold their ground? Against the stone giant? Still, she remained confident. Once the sacred bird intervened, the tide would turn completely. Her eyes drifted to the sky. The Mulan sacred bird, sensing the battle's turning point, released all of its fiery chi, transforming the air within 300 meters into a blazing sea of azure flame. With one sweep of its wings, it split the battlefield, separating the yin-yang devils and isolating the seven great truths cultivators. The devils were driven apart by the waves of fire, and the sacred bird's flames focused on the weary cultivators. Unable to endure the assault any longer, the seven old men's defenses shattered one by one, their lives hanging by a thread. Seeing this, spell warrior Lu relaxed. Her gaze fell on the ancient lanterns beside her, still burning brightly, half filled with oil. Victory was close. But suddenly her sharp eyes caught movement. Her expression hardened. With a flick of her hand, she drew a wisp of fire from one lantern and vanished it with a gesture. 100 meters away, azure flames burst into existence around an unseen figure, revealing Han Li's silhouette, his body wrapped in blue light. "Who's there?" Spell warrior Lo snapped. The captured flames flared violently as she formed a rapid hand seal. In the next instant, the fire roared to life. Around Han Li, a scream echoed briefly through the air, before his figure was engulfed in azure, light and turned to ash. The woman's eyes glowed with cold fury as she muttered, "To think you'd hide yourself near the bright origin lanterns. You're truly seeking death." She didn't bother checking who the victim was. It was enough to know another Heavenly South cultivator had perished. Ever since she had ignited the ancient lanterns, 6 cultivators had tried to sneak close to them. The great bird in the sky had only appeared after the lanterns were lit, and their blue flames continued to burn ever since. Their strange glow drew attention from many who believed they could extinguish the fire and weaken her power. But each one who tried met the same end, burned alive by her flames. Hundreds of meters away, Han Li observed quietly. When he saw how easily the woman killed the hidden cultivator, his heart turned cold. He immediately stopped his slow approach and remained still. His spiritual sense, sharper than most, allowed him to catch every word the woman had said. His gaze shifted to the ancient lanterns. He studied their flickering light with deep thought. These weren't ordinary treasures. They could summon the sacred bird and even expose those in concealment. They would be extremely troublesome to face head-on. After some hesitation, Han Li's brow furrowed. He made a decision. With a light slap to his storage pouch, he retrieved a few items and glanced at the spirit beast bags hanging at his waist, a faint smile forming on his lips. Meanwhile, spell warrior Lu sat cross-legged before the lanterns, her body surrounded by a faint lotus mirage. Her senses stretched wide, merged with the lantern's light, alert for any movement within 100 meters. A sudden flash of light appeared in the distance, revealing a dozen tall apes. Another row of the same stood behind them, and in unison, they raised their arms and released dozens of light beams that streaked toward her. "Puppets," she murmured in surprise, then frowned as she sensed their craftsmanship. Well made, whoever controls them isn't ordinary. Unbothered by the incoming beams, she formed an incantation gesture. The Lotus Mirage flickered, blocking the attack easily. Her body blurred as she plucked a spark of flame from one of the lanterns. Instead of striking immediately, she kept the ember hovering before her, staring at the lanterns in deep concentration. A short while later, her eyes sharpened. She exhaled a stream of spiritual chi, and the ember flared with azure brilliance before vanishing. Her head turned sharply toward a point 100 meters away. A figure shimmered into view, bathed in blue flames. With another gesture, she ignited the flame with killing intent curling at her lips, but her smile froze. "Yi, still alive?" The figure didn't burn. There was no cry of pain, no struggle, only stillness. Her expression darkened. Not a person. A puppet! The puppet bore Han Li's likeness, but its body was stiff, unmoving, and completely unscathed by her azure fire. A chill ran down her spine. Not good. She instantly turned back toward the lanterns, extending her spiritual sense, scanning for movement. At that moment, a new figure flickered 60 meters, away in a flash of azure light, then vanished with a crack of thunder. Her eyes widened in alarm. No! She rapidly formed incantation gestures, sending spell seals into the lanterns, but she was already too late. A blinding flash erupted beside the lanterns, and a young man appeared, Han Li. Above him, a massive black-red hand materialized, swelling to 3 meters wide before it came crashing down toward the lanterns. "This man knows which one is the true lantern," she gasped. "Impossible, only the summoner should know that. Even a late nascent soul cultivator shouldn't see through it." The giant hand and her own spell seals struck at nearly the same moment. The lantern shone brightly, transforming as if to defend itself. But Han Li's demonic hand grabbed hold, engulfing it in black yin flames. The other 8 lanterns trembled, then vanished one after another, dissolving into wisps of smoke. "No!" Spell Warrior Lu paled. She quickly raised her hands, summoning a vast lotus mirage to seize the lantern back, but Han Li had anticipated it. The hand holding the lantern retreated instantly, lightning cracking in the air. Both the hand and the youth vanished. A flash later, Han Li reappeared beside the puppet still trapped in azure light. The main lantern clutched tightly in his grasp. He had succeeded through pure precision and timing. "You won't escape!" Spell Warrior. Lo's furious scream echoed through the sky. She glanced back and saw the sacred bird still hovering, its power not yet gone. Enraged, she enveloped herself in azure light and surged after him as a streak of wind. Han Li's face hardened. He stowed the lantern away, spread his light wings, and disappeared again, blinking 100 meters away just as she arrived where he had stood. With one hand forming a quick seal, Han Li muttered, "Explode!" The puppet's mouth burst open, releasing a thunderous explosion of golden lightning and azure flame. The puppet's body shattered, and the blast swept over the nearby Spell Warrior Lo. Her Lotus Mirage instantly formed a barrier, each glowing petal blocking the intertwined lightning and fire. Though unharmed, she was pushed back 10 meters, her wind movement broken for the moment. Han Li exhaled lightly. "It didn't even unleash its full power," he murmured, then vanished once more, fleeing rapidly into the distance. By the time she recovered, he was already hundreds of meters away. She clenched her teeth, about to pursue, when the ruined puppet released a deep hum. Azure light flashed across its remains before they scattered into a swarm of tricolored beetles. The woman cursed, hastily defending herself with her white lotus barrier. The beetles merged together into glowing shields that blocked her path, forcing her to halt. Every time she tried to move, another wave of beetles obstructed her. Her fury burned as she cast spell after spell, but her techniques had no effect. Then she froze. Their shells gleamed gold with faint black specks. Her eyes widened. Gold-devouring beetles? No, something even more vicious. Panicking, she reached for her wood spirit treasure to trap them, but the insects buzzed apart and vanished before she could act. When she looked up again, Han Li was gone. His presence had completely disappeared. She hovered in midair, face pale, heart pounding with frustration and disbelief. At the same time, the sacred bird above the battlefield released one last azure fireball. destroying a great truth's cultivator's barrier. Just as it prepared to strike the helpless man, it suddenly felt its power drain away. Its massive body trembled. It turned, shrieking in panic. Its connection to the lantern severed. Its control over the flames vanished, and its form rapidly shrank until it was barely a meter long. The sea of azure fire that had engulfed the sky flared once more, then faded completely. The 7 great truths cultivators stared in astonishment. Freed, the yin-yang devils transformed into twin whirlwinds, tearing toward the weakened bird. The sacred bird glared at them with hatred, but made no attempt to flee. Just as they were about to strike, the creature exploded into countless specks of azure light that scattered and vanished. Silence fell. The twin devils stopped in midair, stunned. One of the great truths cultivators, his body trembling with exhaustion, asked in disbelief, "It's gone! We're still alive?" Another, the leader among them, looked toward the distant battlefield. The treasure that summoned the demon bird. "It's disappeared," he said with relief. "That's why the creature vanished." As the realization sank in, the old man let out a long sigh. His hands trembled slightly. We were a breath away from death. The sudden disappearance of the Mulan's sacred bird spread like wildfire across both sides of the battlefield, shifting morale in an instant. The spell warriors were struck dumb with disbelief, while the cultivators, once weary and beaten, felt their spirits surge anew. Far in the distance, Tianzhong and the shriveled old divine sage paused mid-battle, their faces filled with shock. It was impossible. The sacred bird couldn't have vanished due to lack of lantern oil. The only explanation was far worse. Someone had extinguished the bright origin lantern. Neither of them could have imagined that the Mulan's treasured artifact had once again fallen into Han Li's hands. In their eyes, with their late nascent soul cultivators, engaged elsewhere, and the sacred bird suppressing their foes, no one should have been capable of breaching spell warrior Lu's defenses. This unforeseen outcome left them both shaken. At that time, Han Li quietly reappeared beside the weeping soul beast, which had already decimated most of the refined corpses. The few that remained were hurriedly withdrawn by the yin sifting sect cultivators. The copper-armored corpses were clearly doomed, and it was only a matter of time before none were left standing. Having devoured a vast amount of undead qi, the weeping soul beast had grown larger and more powerful. Its black fur gleamed with dark radiance, pulsing with terrifying energy. Several black-robed cultivators and spell warriors tried to attack the monstrous ape, but Long Han, understanding its importance, immediately ordered his men to defend it. Without the beast, the copper-armored corpses would have been unstoppable. A few enemies managed to break through, but Silvermoon appeared from the shadows, using her illusion techniques to mislead them, sending each one to their death. When Han Li arrived, the weeping soul beast was finishing off the last of the copper-armored corpses. With a single wave of his hand, the enormous creature shrank into a streak of black light and flew into a spirit pouch at his waist. Silvermoon descended gracefully behind him, her expression calm but alert. Han Li was about to speak to her when the sky above suddenly darkened. Thunder rumbled as thick black clouds gathered, streaked with flashes of green lightning that tore across the heavens. Han Li looked up, his expression hardening. "Who is it? Who dares to kill my wife? I'll destroy your soul until nothing remains." The furious roar of the yin-sifting sect master echoed through the clouds, shaking the battlefield. Han Li's heart trembled slightly as he stared upward, his expression gloomy. A cold voice followed, cutting through the storm like a blade. "Why so eager to flee before victory is decided? Let me test your demonic arts once again." It was Devil Concord. Moments later, a surge of gray mist burst from the horizon, colliding with the black clouds and stopping their advance. "I've no time to waste with you," the yin-sifting sect master replied harshly. "Leave me be or I won't hold back." A low chuckle sounded. "Not holding back? You mean you've been holding back all this time?" Devil Concord mocked. "Show me what you truly have then." There was silence for a moment before the yin-sifting sect master answered coldly. "Very well. Since you insist, I'll show you the power of my sect's sacred treasure, the ghost-sifting banner." His tone carried both menace and satisfaction. "The ghost-sifting banner?" Devil Concord's voice rose in faint curiosity. Down below, the cultivators froze in astonishment. News that the yin-sifting sect master's Dao companion had been killed spread quickly, shocking both friend and foe alike. Hanli's expression remained steady. But when he realized Devil Concord had intercepted the yin-sifting sect master, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He had no desire to be pursued by a late nascent soul cultivator again. Everyone expected the two mighty experts to descend and battle before their eyes, but before that could happen, a piercing whistle cut through the air from the direction of the Mulan plains. A dozen streaks of multicolored light shot across the sky toward the battlefield. Before they even arrived, a loud voice rang out. Amplified by some mysterious technique, divine sages, "Stop the battle immediately! Something has happened at the Mulan plains!" The words spread across the entire battlefield, halting countless combatants mid-fight. Both cultivators and spell warriors turned in confusion. The shriveled old divine sage's heart sank. Taking advantage of the pause, he disengaged from combat and flew toward the approaching lights. Long Han hesitated briefly but did not pursue. The old man had held the upper hand in their fight, and continuing would gain nothing. It was curious, though, the newcomers had deliberately made sure the cultivators also heard their message. Perhaps it concerned the soaring tribes or an event too important to hide. Han Li, watching from a distance, frowned slightly as the dozen streaks of light reached the battlefield. When they stopped, the lights faded, revealing a group of spell warriors in different robes, led by a man in yellow whose cultivation had reached mid-nascent soul stage. Han Li was surprised. Someone of that level would normally be guarding something significant, rather than joining the front lines. Above, the clouds stirred again, and both Devil Concord and the yin-sifting sect master silently withdrew into the mist. The shriveled old spell warrior looked at the yellow-robed newcomer in disbelief. Before he could speak, the yellow-robed man landed beside him and sent a message through voice transmission. The old man's face darkened as he listened. Then, receiving a jade slip, he scanned it quickly, and his expression turned pale. After a few quiet words, the yellow-robed spell warrior stepped back as the old man flew toward Long Han. When he stopped before the cultivator leader, his tone was grave. "We will not continue this war. It's over. If we persist, a third power will rise and rule over us both." Long Han's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean? If you want to stop this battle, give me a reason." The old man's gaze grew cold. "Did you send men to infiltrate Soaring Heaven City's storehouse?" Long Han's expression didn't change, though his heart tightened. He responded calmly, "So you found out." "Found out?" The old man sneered. "Were it not for interference from a third party, your plan might have succeeded." "A third party?" Long Han repeated, frowning. The old man said nothing aloud, but spoke directly through sound transmission. As Long Han listened, his eyes widened in shock. "What? So that's how it is?" he exclaimed. "With things as they are, I have no reason to lie," the old man replied flatly. Long Han fell silent for a moment, then raised his hand. A talisman shot into the air, bursting into several radiant golden spheres that spread across the battlefield. At once, the cultivators stopped fighting and retreated in formation, their withdrawal as swift and orderly as a swarm of bees returning to the hive. The spell warriors followed suit. The blood-vial ghost and the stone giant also ceased their combat. In moments, the once chaotic battlefield became still and empty. Both armies had suffered heavy losses, though high-ranking cultivators on either side had mostly survived. The spell warriors maintained composure, but among the cultivators, confusion erupted. Many demanded answers from Long Han, yet he could only give a bitter smile, offering no explanation. Above, the dark clouds and mist parted, revealing Devil Concord and the yin-sifting sect, master glaring coldly at one another. Their confrontation ceased as well. From another direction, Wei Wuya and Master Sunreach descended, their presence restoring calm to the cultivator ranks. Shortly after, two more figures, the scholarly man, surnamed Ju, and the dwarf, landed among the Mulan troops, drawing cheers from their side. Once the great leaders had returned, Long Han gathered them in private, careful to avoid public panic. Only a select few, mid-nascent, soul cultivators and trusted commanders were allowed to hear the terrible message that had arrived from the Mulan plains. Given Han Li's astonishing performance during the battle, it was only natural that he, too, would be called to join this crucial discussion. Long Han erected a soundproofing barrier and planted several small flags, creating a misty shield around the group. Han Li observed quietly, contemplating the scene. Not many cultivators were present. Setting aside the few eccentrics still trapped inside the blood barriers, just over 20 people had gathered, representing many of the factions involved in the recent battle. Master Sunreach's voice broke the silence, calm yet inquisitive. "Fellow Taoist Long, what has happened? Why do the Mulan no longer wish to fight?" Wei Wuya frowned, suspicion in his tone. "It is strange. Matters have already gone past that point. Could they be attempting some vain illusion of peace?" Long Han's bitter smile revealed his unease. "It is no illusion. I fear we may not have the option to choose." Devil Conquered's brows knitted in astonishment. "How can that be? Has another party interfered in the war?" Long Han's expression darkened. "Yes, the soaring tribes have attacked. They have also reportedly allied with several sects from the Jin Empire, launching a joint assault on the Mulan. The largest Mulan tribe had been stationed as a rear guard to protect their homeland, but in just a month, they were completely annihilated. News of this was suppressed so thoroughly that the other tribes had no idea. It seems the soaring tribes aim to sweep us both aside and claim the heavenly south continent for themselves. Silence fell over the cultivators as the weight of his words sank in. Han Li's brow furrowed, sensing that the situation had worsened. A tiger may have been approaching from the front, but wolves had been lying in wait all along. Taoist's shattered soul snorted in disbelief. "Is this information true? The soaring tribes are so far from the heavenly south continent. Surely they are bluffing?" Long Han's tone carried helplessness. "It is true. Eccentric Heaven Venge and the other cultivators sent to infiltrate. Soaring Heaven City were defeated. The soaring tribe's spies had intentions similar to ours. They sent cultivators to pillage the Mulan storehouse. Eccentric Heaven Venge encountered them, uncovering this unexpected truth." He continued, his voice steady. "Regarding the battle, everyone must know that while the Mulan's fully deployed forces were slightly weaker than ours, they fought with a dying resolve. Were it not for fellow Taoist, Han's immense display of might, against the copper-armored corpses and the Mulan sacred bird, we would have suffered catastrophic losses. Even though the Heavenly South factions had exerted themselves fully, many sects had left nearly half of their disciples to guard their bases. Had they joined the war, we might have eradicated the Mulan spell warriors entirely, but at the cost of severely weakening ourselves. With the soaring tribes approaching, we would have been powerless to resist them." Several cultivators, unaware that Han Li had faced both the refined corpses and the azure sacred bird, glanced at him in astonishment. Han Li calmly ignored them. Wei Wuya snorted coldly, voice heavy with skepticism. "The Mulan sought to seize our domain. How can there be talk of peace? Are we really giving them half of our land?" Long Han shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. However, we can hand over 2 countries bordering the Mulan Plains. In doing so, the Mulan will bear the brunt of the soaring tribe's assault. Being mortal enemies, they will not betray us. Naturally, given the soaring tribe's strength, we must cooperate with the Mulan to resist them. In an instant, 2 irreconcilable enemies became allies. Even the ancient, well-experienced eccentrics present offered no objections." Wei Wuya's expression soured. "Those territories belong to the 9 Nations Union? Are we truly handing them over?" Long Han explained patiently. "There is no alternative. Those areas are closest to the Mulan Plains. We will not let you bear this burden alone. After discussions, we will ensure your union is properly compensated." Wei Wuya nodded, deferring the issue. "Then we will address that matter later. First, we must see what the Mulan think." Han Li's gaze shifted to Master Sunreach and Devil Conquered. Both seemed contemplative, though it was clear they had already reached their own decisions. Only Wei Wuya's presence delayed immediate agreement. Han Li sighed, realizing the powers had returned to plotting for their own advantage. Long Han's expression remained composed. I spoke hastily. "We will discuss specifics later, but before negotiations, we must immediately send men to the Mulan Plains to confirm the soaring tribes' invasion. If true, the Mulan cannot continue fighting, and we must make concessions together. Otherwise, the soaring tribes will sweep us both away." The explanation eased the cultivators' concerns, even relaxing Wei Wuya's stern expression. Han Li stayed silent, Matters not involving the drifting cloud sect or himself required no effort on his part. With Longhand leading, he trusted the Heavenly Tao Union would not suffer serious losses. Soon the eccentrics concluded their discussions and dispelled the restrictions around them. The three great cultivators exchanged brief words. Then the Mulan and Heavenly South dispatched representatives to negotiate a temporary ceasefire. Other details would be discussed in the coming days. The Mulan sages' faces were grim. With their retreat blocked and homeland compromised, their spell warriors were demoralized, morale at rock bottom. Hanley and the other cultivators watched as the Mulan armies withdrew toward Skyfirst City. The battle at the border, involving hundreds of thousands of immortal cultivators, had ended. Several months later, in a barren mountain range stretching endlessly, a streak of azure light shot across the sky like lightning. Within the glow, a figure could be discerned. Han Li, clad in simple scholarly robes, returning to the drifting cloud sect. Since the border battle, news spread that the soaring tribes intended to exploit the Mulan's weakened state, forcing a reluctant ceasefire. The Heavenly South could no longer delay. Negotiations with the Mulan intensified. Initially, the Mulan demanded a third of the Heavenly South continent, threatening war otherwise. Progress stalled until Mulan mortals gathered at the plain's edge, and the soaring tribes openly pursued Mulan spell warriors. Gradually, the divine sages conceded. On the verge of extinction, the Mulan could negotiate with the Heavenly South. Unlike with the soaring tribes, with whom they shared tens of thousands of years of mutual hatred. After several rounds of discussion, an agreement was reached. 2 countries would be handed to the Mulan, their native mortals relocated, and each of the 3 powers would carve portions of their territories to compensate the 9 nations, Union for Displaced Clans and Sects. In return, the Mulan were obligated to resist the soaring tribes alongside the Heavenly South, who provided assistance. Confined to 2 countries, the Mulan avoided extermination while their future expansion was limited. This ensured they would not face the soaring tribes alone. Under these circumstances, both sides were satisfied. Yet one matter remained with Han Li. Having slain the Dao, companion of the Yin Sifting Sect Master, he had received repeated challenges demanding single combat. Each time, Han Li extinguished the messages without reply. It was unreasonable for an early, nascent soul cultivator to face a late, nascent soul opponent, and Han Li was not a reckless, hot-blooded fool. Once negotiations concluded, the Yin Sifting Sect Master reconciled with the Mulan Divine Sages and departed with his subordinates, reportedly returning to the Jin Empire, much to Han Li's relief. The ancient lantern Han Li had captured was the legacy, treasure of the Mulan tribes, the Bright Origin Lantern. The Mulan Divine Sages made it clear that this lantern had been passed down through countless generations and was not something that should fall into the hands of outsiders. They immediately requested its return. Hanley, of course, had no intention of refusing or letting the opportunity slip by. He asked for several chunks of auric essence as compensation. Unfortunately, the Mulan did not possess much. They could only offer a small piece. In the end, Han Li reluctantly accepted other rare materials as a substitute and returned the Bright Origin Lantern. In truth, Han Li had never wanted to keep the lantern. Its power was indeed formidable, but he knew it would one day become a burden. If he chose to hold on to it, there would inevitably come a time when the Mulan would conspire to reclaim it. It was far wiser to be rid of it now. On his way back to the drifting cloud sect, Han Li glanced at the storage pouch at his waist. When he had returned the ancient lantern in exchange for rare materials, the Mulan had also returned the flower basket ancient treasure and the purple cloud lace without any discussion. It was clear the Mulan understood that staying in the Heavenly South for long meant they could not afford to offend powerful cultivators. Returning the ancient treasures avoided any grudges, and Han Li's immense display of strength in young age had even left the Mulan Divine Sages wary. With the treasures back in his possession, Hanley handed the purple cloud lace to Silvermoon. She had only used it while in her demon fox body, but its effects had been significant. Hanley was not ungrateful, so he gave it to her as a reward. Meanwhile, news of the temporary alliance between the Heavenly South and the Mulan spread. The soaring tribes hesitated. stationing a large number of cultivators at the Mulan Plains border, but they did not launch an immediate attack. They simply observed, weighing the movements of the Heavenly South and the Mulan. However, this cautious approach only worried Master Sunreach and the other Heavenly South leaders. The delay in action revealed the soaring tribes' clear intent to eventually invade the continent. With time before the next confrontation, the Heavenly South powers resumed their usual rotations guarding the border. Each sect stationed a few elite disciples, near the two countries handed to the Mulan. Should the soaring tribes attack, the Mulan would be reinforced immediately, while the other cultivators could return to their sects. As a Drifting Cloud sect elder, Hanley had matters to attend to with senior martial brother, Liu. After confirming that most sect disciples had survived, he was free to return to the sect. Lulo had additional responsibilities and stayed behind, leaving Han Li to travel first. Han Li used the wind-riding chariot to speed his journey, but when he entered the state of Shi, he put it away to avoid drawing attention. The remaining distance was covered in the blink of an eye. Seeing the Dream Cloud Mountains in the distance, a smile crossed his face at the thought of Nangong Wan's beautiful appearance. Soon he found himself in a secret room, glaring at his senior martial brother Chung, the silver-haired elder, whose expression radiated fury and malevolence. "What's going on?" Hanley demanded. He had not returned directly to his cave residence. Halfway back, he had been stopped and brought to a secret room filled with glacial energy. There, Han Li was met with an astonishing sight. Nangong Wan had been transformed into a 7-year-old child, sealed inside a slab of ice. Her eyes were closed, completely unaware of her surroundings, filling Han Li with fury and alarm. Senior Marshal Brother Chung smiled bitterly and sighed. "If you had returned 2 weeks earlier, Junior Marshal Brother Han, perhaps this could have been prevented. Her life is not in immediate danger, but she had to use this method to delay the activation of the Soul Seal Curse." The Soul Seal Curse? How did this Yin Curse activate? I thought it had been eradicated in the Heavenly South. Could it be? Han Li paused as a thought struck him. Seeing his hesitation, Chung explained in detail what had happened. Half a month ago, Nangong Wan had left her cave in the morning to absorb frost from a nearby mountain for her incarnation arts. She did not expect to encounter a black-robed man. The man attacked immediately, using a ferocious, Devil Dao technique that shattered several of her protective treasures. She tried to escape toward her cave, calling for help. By the time Chung and other disciples arrived, she was already captured. The man pressed his finger to her forehead, then released her. Alarmed, Chung ordered his disciples to attack, but the black-robed man did not resist them. He left behind a jade slip and vanished at lightning speed. Unable to stop him, Chung brought Nangong Wan back and discovered that she had been afflicted with the Soul Seal Curse, a long-lost restriction in the Heavenly South Devil Dao. The curse gradually sealed a person's intellect and spirit, eventually destroying the soul over time, leaving the target as a living corpse. It had once been a malicious method to deal with enemies. Frightened and at a loss, Chung watched Nangong Wan, who had managed to awaken on her own. Realizing the danger, she used her greater incarnation arts to temporarily seal herself in glacial chi. This slowed the curse's effects dramatically, leaving her in the state Han Li now saw. Chung handed Han Li 2 jade slips, an azure slip for Nangong Wan and a crimson slip for Han Li. Sullenly, Han Li received the slips and first examined the one meant for Nangong Wan. Immersing his spiritual sense, he wore a strange expression, concern mixed with gratitude. Chung was stunned. The jade slip had been left by Nangong Wan for Han Li. It had a trick allowing others to detect if someone else had read it, so Chung had not touched it. Seeing Han Li read it without issue left the elder awestruck. After reading the azure slip, Han Li moved to the crimson one. Once he finished, his expression darkened. In fury, he immolated both jade slips in purple flames. Chung watched, astonished. Though not meticulously refined, the slips were difficult to destroy without leaving ashes. Yet Han Li had done it effortlessly. This confirmed rumors of his power exceeding that of a mid-nascent soul. Cultivator, a formidable asset for the Drifting Cloud sect. Hanley muttered, "Senior Marshal Brother Chang, did you catch the face of the person who ambushed Nangong Wan? Was he tall? What was his cultivation? Could I know him? Chung replied promptly. I saw him. He was a tall youth with an ordinary face. Using concealment techniques I could not penetrate. He should be at least mid-nascent soul, as he easily overpowered Donghua. Han Li's expression flickered in surprise. Yes, he must be older than you. Very few cultivators could condense a nascent soul at your age. From the jade slip he left. He wants you to deliver your golden, lightning bamboo refined treasure to the profound heaven mountains. Perhaps he is a Devil Dao cultivator. From the Jin Empire's yin-sifting sect. Do you truly possess such a treasure? I can't say for certain if it is him, but he clearly has a connection to me. Likely a Devil Dao cultivator from the yin-sifting sect. I thought they only sought vengeance for a slain sect member, but it seems they also want my golden lightning bamboo treasure. Wanner got caught in this unexpectedly. And yes, I do possess the treasure, Han Li said, his anger giving way to a cold resolve. This is unsurprising. Golden lightning bamboo is legendary against devil arts. And since they're from the Jin Empire, they won't hold back. I'll invite some close friends to join us in finding this man.